So hi guys, my name is Dan Boghean. I am the BIM manager at Oz Architecture. I work with Devin. And thanks for letting me stand up here and present today. I'm going to be going over a very simple workflow in Dynamo, but it's something that I think is useful. So I just wanted to show how Dynamo can be used in a simple way to extract data from Revit that then can be used elsewhere. So this was actually a request by someone at Oz. They were looking to get a list of revisions and the sheets they were associated with to be able to have that in Excel and compare. So we'll go over the graph, but there's also kind of different variations of it. So as we kind of worked through the graph, we also built another version of it, which is kind of more of a matrix version of it that allowed them to do their job a little bit better. So I will just demo that. We won't go through it, but just wanted to give you a heads up of what I'm going to be showing. So we'll start out with this basic AEC sample. I think everybody's probably familiar with this. And I just want to show that I have a few different levels here. So entry-level furniture layout 2 and 3, and each level has a few revision clouds on them. So if I go to the revisions, you'll see that this project currently has kind of 6 generic revisions. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab these descriptions and revision number, sequence number, and some other data from the revision clouds and push it out to Excel. So as you can see, kind of each floor plan has different types of revisions. So revision 3, revision 1, etc. And that happens on each floor. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is if we go to the sheet, there's different ways to do revision clouds. You can either do all of your revision clouds in a floor plan, or you can do them on a sheet. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky to kind of identify where those revision clouds are. If in this case, we have some that are on the plan and some that are on the sheet. So the nice thing about this Dynamo script is that it captures all of those and associates it with the correct sheet. So that was one of the things that we were trying to tackle as we were building the script. So let's get to Dynamo. So it's split up into 3 parts. First part is what I called gathering. So it's where we're going to grab the necessary data. The second part is the filtering, which allows us to manipulate the lists. And then the final part is writing it to Excel. So if we go ahead and go to part 1. Usually what I like to do is start with these kind of template blocks. I'm not sure what to call them, but they're just notes and groups that kind of have some basic information about the node. So in this case, it has the script name, the creator, a short description, Dynamo version, the Revit versions that it's applicable to, and some of the packages that are used. And this way, if someone else is coming into the script, or if you need to go back and refer to it later, you know what is necessary in order to run the script. So definitely has been helpful, and it's something that I try to do going forward as I create Dynamo scripts for the firm. And then color coding, there's a couple different options. And I want to add that I didn't come up with this system. This was something that's available online. So it's something that you can download and use in your own scripts going forward. And you can easily just select all of these, copy and paste into another node. There's other ways to make this kind of come up by default, but I won't get into that at this point. We can chat about that later. But the color coding kind of also helps determine what nodes do. So in this case, like I said, the first part is gathering. So a lot of these are green. If we kind of go over here, the green is creation and retrieval of data, right? So in this step, everything is green. So just real quick, we'll walk through some of these nodes. I'm not sure what the level of Dynamo is, so I'll go ahead and explain it as if most people aren't super familiar with it. By default, Dynamo works kind of in a filtering system. So typically, you would gather a large swath of elements and then filter it down to select and pick out specific elements that you want to manipulate. Now, in this case, we're specifically looking for revision clouds. So that is a type of category in Revit. So if we were to look at all the categories available, it's pretty much anything you can think of that is accessible in Revit. So you can scroll for days. You can see how small that little scroll bar is, because there's just lots of categories you can choose from, which is great. It gives you accessibility to pretty much anything you want to manipulate in Revit. In this case, revision clouds is what we're looking for, so we'll select that. Now that is a category, so in order to get all those elements, we have to use an all elements of category node, and this takes this category and gathers all of these elements. So if I go ahead and hit run, hopefully it doesn't take too long. One thing I did want to point out is it's a good idea to make sure that everything works beforehand. Right before I set up, I realized that at our firm, the packages are hosted on the server. So by default, my package path is pointed to a server location. So I went to open this node, this graph, everything was broken. So good thing to keep in mind whenever you're presenting. I'm sure I'm not the first one that's run into that. So I hit run. You'll see down here it's completed. Just so everyone knows, there's two modes of running. There's manual and automatic. I almost always use manual because I run into a lot of problems if I use automatic, where I start to connect things and in ways I probably shouldn't at first, and it starts to blow up Dynamo. So manual kind of gives me a little bit more control over when I run things. So if you hover over a node, you'll see that it kind of gives you a preview of how many elements are in this list. For example, if I were to hit that guy, why doesn't it show? Okay, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. So hovering over it and kind of clicking that pin button allows it to stay expanded, and it gives you a list of all of the elements that are within that node. So here we're looking at revision clouds, and there's an ID associated with them. So they're elements from Revit. If I were to click on this ID, I'm not going to because I don't have Revit open, but right next to it. But if you click on this ID, it will actually highlight it and kind of, or at least zoom to it in Revit. So it allows you to see what elements in Revit they are. So that gives us a list of all the revision clouds that we have. It's not associated to a level or anything. It's just a list of all the revision clouds. There's a couple things that we now do to manipulate it. The first thing I do here is get the sheet that the revision cloud is on. So there's an element owner view node. I believe this is from the Clockwork package. I get those confused sometimes, Clockwork and Arcalab. Those are two packages that I use quite a bit, and there's a lot of really useful nodes. But this allows you to get the owner element of another element. So in this case, the owner element of a revision cloud is a sheet. So this spits out 21 elements, which are sheets. So you'll see, if we zoom in a little bit, floor plan view, and then the sheet name, etc. So that gives me sheets, and now you can, from those sheets, grab parameters using the element.getParameterValue. This allows you to grab any parameter that you pretty much see in your properties. So in this case, we're grabbing the sheet name and the sheet number. And as long as you type it the same, it should work. So in this case, that's what we're getting. We're getting, if I hover over it, I don't know why it's not hovering. You'll just have to take my word in this case, since I only have like 5 minutes left. But this gives us sheet number and sheet name to use further down the graph. The other part of the graph is I take the revision clouds, and there's a note, there's a parameter again that allows me to get the actual revision of the revision cloud. So again, if I were to go in here and click on a revision cloud, you'll see that this is a parameter that I can access. So by using the get parameter value by name, I'm specifying the name, and it's giving me the value that I'm looking for. From there, I'm getting that revision, and again, there's a node called revision properties. I believe it's Arcalab, and it does the behind the scenes work, which is in Python, and it spits out kind of all the things that are associated with the revision. So here, specifically, we're going to be interested in description, which is kind of the revision name. And also, at Oz, we were interested in mark and comments as well, which are parameters of a revision cloud. So here, we're just getting all of the properties that we're interested in pushing down the line. So that's kind of the overview of the gathering part. So we're getting revision clouds. From the revision clouds, we're getting sheets that they're on, and then from the sheets, we're getting the name and number. And then from the revision clouds, we're getting the revision that is applied to it, and then some of the properties of that revision. So now we'll go to part 2. Just here. And so now we're just building on top of it. So this green part is the first part, is the gathering, and the filtering will be the gray part. So we'll just walk through this pretty quick. So we're getting lists out of all of these nodes. I'm gonna hit run real quick so that we can see if it'll actually show. If I click that, there we go. So in this case, you'll see that my sheets are named A something. But there are some revisions, and I have 2 revisions that are placed on a plan that was not put on a sheet. And I'm not interested in those. In this case, we were only interested in revision clouds that were placed on sheets. So if you look at revision number and revision name, you'll have a couple instances where it doesn't have a name or number. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure why that is not doing, there we go. So I'm not interested in these blank ones. So what I want to do is filter those out. So in this case, I'm just using a simple equal node. We're just comparing 2 things, and I'm comparing the name of these sheets to a blank character. There's nothing there, right? So I'm trying to see for each item in this list, is it equal to nothing? If it is, then it produces a list of true and false.
Want to give you a heads up, 5-minute warning.
Okay, yeah, I'll speed it up. Yeah, sure.
People on the other
Got it. Okay, so yeah, we're cruising. We're almost there. So the equals node will just give you a list of true, false. So if I can zoom in a little bit, you'll see that all of these are false, which means they're not equal to blank. And whenever it is equal to blank, we get true. What that allows us to do is use this filter by Boolean mask, which I use quite a bit. And it allows you to take any list. In this case, I used the list create node to grab a bunch of different types of sources. So whether it's the description, sequence number, all these parameters that we got previously, and we combine it into one list. So what that does is it just creates a list of lists. So it's one list that contains a bunch of lists of the things that we grabbed. And then this filter by Boolean mask then uses this true false to give us anything that's blank in the in, because we're saying if it's true, it's in, and anything that's false in the out. So it's just removing anything that has a blank name associated with it. And once we get the out, which is the sheets that we're looking for, we're going to use the count node, and that allows us to get the total amount of revisions so that we can add an index to it, so that we can go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or however you want to start. In this case, I'm starting with 1. So again, we're taking the list, counting it, getting the item at 0 because there's multiple lists. So in that list of lists, we're counting it multiple times. Sorry, I wish I could show you. I'm not sure why it's not dropping down here. By default, this will work a lot better on your computer, I promise. But so you'll see that it's counting all these lists of lists. And I'm only interested in one because they're all going to be the same because we're using the same input. So all of them should be the same length. In this case, I'm only interested in one. That's what this item here is doing. It's just grabbing the first one. And then I'm using that number 19 to create a sequence of numbers that then I'm putting into, so that is just going to give me a 1 to 19. And then I'm inserting that into the list. So I have index of revision clouds, all these parameters that we gathered previously. And I'm inserting at the front because I want it to be in the front column. Now, the one thing to keep in mind here is we're aiming to push it to Excel. So a list, whenever you write it to Excel, it's treated as a row. So right now, if we were to look at our list, it would write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way to 19 in a row instead of a column. So that's not what we want. So in this case, there's a handy dandy list transpose node. And what that allows us to do is transform what would be a row into a column. So it just takes kind of the index 0 of each list and makes a new list of that. So it just kind of shifts that into rows, which is what we're looking for. And then the last thing I need to do is add, for my sake and people that are reading it, just headers. So what this does is I'm just typing the headers of what I want those headers to be, and then adding it at the front so that it's the first row that we're writing. So then go into the last part, which is super simple and almost done.
1 minute warning, you and awesome.
1 minute warning.
And for everybody's benefit, this is being recorded. We'll post it so you can follow along at your own speed after the fact.
Perfect. So the most important piece of this part is the link sent to Excel. Dynamo has a great excel.write-to-file node. All you have to do is plug in the file path that you want to write to, the sheet name of the sheet that you want to write to in the Excel file, where you want to start in the row and column, the data you're pushing, and whether or not you want to override it. One thing that we did was use data shapes, which is a package that allows us to create a small UI to allow people to select the file. So if we were to run it, it should pop up with a quick little guy. Any second now. I'm going to blame Autodesk Wi-Fi. I don't know. Maybe. There it is. So you get a little interface where you can choose the Excel file. If we choose the revisions Excel file, we're not going to override in this case. Hit OK. We'll have all of those. Whoops. You'll have all of your parameters that we were extracting. So you have your revision cloud number. This is the index of the revision clouds as they were created. You'll have the sheet number it's on, the sheet name, the sequence number, revision number, and then any other information that we were specifically looking for, as well as the name of the revision. So that's pretty much it.
Let's stop there. Hand for Dan. Thank you.